Some years ago, I built a Caltrain MP36 partly as a tribute to the electrification of the line, which ultimately got delayed by COVID. I didn't keep the MP36 because I didn't want to invest in building a matching set of cars at the time. However, by complete chance, someone commissioned the Metra F40C with bilevels late last year, and I once again began considering building an equivalent Caltrain set. I decided to do this with a more sanely powered F40PH, specifically an F40PH-2, not to be confused with the F40PH-2 Cat or F40PH-2C. Caltrain operates all three of these variants, some since 1985, and all of them have slight external differences, which I did not notice until I started sifting through various reference photos for this build. All three types are to be retired when services are fully electrified. In every one of my passenger diesel builds, the hardest part has been the nose. I had more trouble on the F40PH than on the F40C because all the surfaces come to points with no flat sections in between. Optimistically, I had wanted to add lights as well, but I could not figure out how to do it with the current nose design. I may look into it again if I keep the model long enough to eventually do a revision. While the names of the F40PH and F40C sound similar, the bodies of the two locomotives differ considerably. The F40C has a bunch of raised grills or panels, while the F40PH has much more conventional flush sides. This made the body of the F40PH less complicated, though I still decided to make it studs forwards and backwards. Both locomotives nonetheless have the same windows and the same roof profile, the latter going all the way back to the MP36. I based the Bogey frames on a design I proposed for 4-bar linkage's Caltrain MP15, since both the switcher and the F40PH use Blomberg trucks. Using thin Big Bend Bricks wheels on 5-length axles allowed me to pull the frames in by a full plate on each side compared to using the official part on 6-length axles. I tested the pulling capacity on plastic and metal tracks to see how it compared to the predictions made in the tires video. The 950-gram locomotive underperformed on plastic track and overperformed on metal track, suggesting that the BBB wheels perform differently than official wheels, perhaps due to different geometry or materials. When I built the LS1000, I hypothesized about placing motors directly above bogies and connecting them with the new 28-tooth gears. Well, the F40PH was just short enough that I had to try this out, resulting in a net gear ratio of 7:5 compared to the more common 5:3. I also needed comparatively few studs to secure the motors, since bigger gears produce less separating forces compared to smaller gears. I bought a pair of new not PFL motors, which should have driven the engine at a fairly brisk pace, but I ran into a problem. These two units ran at insanely high speeds, and therefore drew insanely high power, almost twice that of regular L motors, and easily overloading both official V2 and not PF receivers. I don't know if these particular motors were defective or if the not PF factory permanently changed something in their design. Recalling that the Mold King M motor I tested performed quite similarly to an official M motor, I decided to try out a pair of Mold King L motors rather than gamble on a new pair of not PF L motors. Investigating that situation can be for a future video. The Mold King parts come in the now familiar colors, packed in the familiar black box with the familiar plastic tray. Unsurprisingly, these motors do perform much more like their official counterparts, delivering a little less torque and power across the working range. This does make the locomotive a little bit slower than I'd like, but better slow and working than just not working. Perhaps I could go crazy and gear down like a buggy motor, but the bodywork would require significant redesign. Also, the locomotive handles R40 geometry about as well as any other 4-axle diesel. Finally, I did make stickers for the model, as I tentatively intend to keep some sort of Caltrain set as a local historical something to run or display at shows. I once again cut exact shapes rather than circumscribed rectangles, as I felt that exact shapes looked really good on the F40C, especially compared to something like the Amtrak logo on my Simmons Charger. Though the exact shapes, they did prove somewhat difficult to align on the F40PH. And that's pretty much it. I will do a separate video on the bi-level cars, as there will be a twist. See the video description for commission inquiries, and leave a comment if you have interest in buying instructions, though I'll probably take a look at that eventually. On that note, this is the end of the video. Please consider subscribing if you like what we do, and have a nice day.